What if I told you that in 1870, a 31-year-old man controlled just 4% of America's oil? Sounds small, right? But by 1880, he dominated 25%. And by 1904, he controlled a staggering 91% of oil production in the United States. His name was John D. Rockefeller. And here's the part that should terrify you. The monopolistic playbook he perfected over 150 years ago? It's the exact same system controlling every aspect of your life right now in 2025. Your phone, your shopping, your job, even your retirement savings. By the end of this video, you'll never look at the world the same way again, because you're about to discover how one man created a trap that humanity can never escape. The humble beginning. Let me take you back to 1839. John Davison Rockefeller was born into absolute chaos. His father, William, wasn't just absent, he was a professional con artist. The man literally sold fake cancer cures, had 2 wives who didn't know about each other and would disappear for months at a time to avoid the law. But his mother, Eliza, she was the polar opposite. Deeply religious, incredibly disciplined, and determined to keep the family from falling apart. While her husband was out scamming people, she was drilling into young John the importance of hard work, thrift, and faith. This combination created something dangerous. From his father, Rockefeller learned how to manipulate people and negotiate deals. From his mother, he learned patience, discipline, and the ability to justify anything with moral certainty. Imagine combining a con man's ruthlessness with a saint's self-righteousness. That was John D. Rockefeller. At 16, he got his first job as a bookkeeper, making 50 cents a day. Most people wouldn't remember their first job, right? Rockefeller celebrated it every year for the rest of his life. He called it Job Day and considered it more important than his birthday. This wasn't just a young man proud of his first paycheck. This was someone who saw work as his entire identity, his purpose, his religion. By his early 20s, he'd saved enough to start a commodities business. But in 1863, something happened that would change everything. Oil was discovered in Pennsylvania. Most people saw oil as a gamble, a gold rush, something you could strike it rich on if you were lucky. Rockefeller saw something completely different. And while everyone else was drilling for oil, hoping to hit a gusher, Rockefeller asked a different question. Who actually makes money when oil is found? And the answer was clear. Not the people drilling, but the people refining and transporting it. Think about that for a second. While thousands of people were gambling on finding oil, one man decided to control the system that processed it. This insight, this ability to see the invisible machine underneath the chaos, this was the moment that would eventually trap all of us. The birth of the monster. In 1870, Rockefeller founded Standard Oil with several partners in Cleveland, Ohio. Within just 2 years, he controlled 10% of all oil refining in America. But here's where things get absolutely insane. By 1880, Standard Oil controlled 90% of oil refining. Let me repeat that. In just 10 years, Rockefeller went from 10% to 90%. How is that even possible? This is where the real story begins. Because what Rockefeller built wasn't just a company. It was a system designed to make competition impossible. Let me break down the tactics that would become the blueprint for every major corporation you interact with today. Tactic number 1, the railroad deal. Rockefeller negotiated secret deals with railroad companies. Because Standard Oil shipped so much oil, he got massive discounts on shipping rates, sometimes 50% cheaper than his competitors. But here's the genius, evil part. He also negotiated drawbacks. What are drawbacks? Rockefeller got paid a portion of what his competitors paid to ship their oil. Read that again. Every time his rivals shipped a barrel of oil, they were literally giving Rockefeller money to compete against them. Imagine trying to run a race where your opponent gets faster every time you take a step. That's what competing against Standard Oil was like. Tactic number 2, vertical integration. Standard Oil didn't just refine oil. Rockefeller bought the barrel-making companies. He bought the storage facilities. He built his own pipelines. He owned the train cars. He controlled the distribution networks. Every single step, from the ground to your lamp, owned by one company. What this meant was that any competitor had to fight Standard Oil at every single level. You couldn't just be better at refining, you had to be better at everything simultaneously, while paying higher prices than Standard Oil for every single step. It was designed to be impossible. Tactic number 3, the Cleveland Massacre. In 1872, Rockefeller executed what became known as the Cleveland Massacre. Over just 48 hours, he approached 22 out of 26 oil refiners in Cleveland with the same offer. Sell your company to Standard Oil, or we will destroy you. Here's how the pitch went. Look at our numbers. We can ship cheaper than you, we can produce cheaper than you, we can undercut your prices until you go bankrupt, or you can sell to us now at a fair price and join the winning side. Most sold immediately. The few who refused? Within months, Standard Oil dropped oil prices in their specific regions so low that these companies couldn't survive. Once they went bankrupt, Rockefeller bought their equipment for pennies on the dollar. In just 48 hours, Rockefeller went from controlling 10% of Cleveland's oil refining to controlling 90%, and Cleveland was the biggest refining city in America. The trust, the invisible cage. But Rockefeller had a problem. He was getting too big, too obvious. States were starting to ask questions. How could one company in Ohio control businesses across the entire country? So, in 1882, Rockefeller invented something that would change capitalism forever: the trust. Here's how it worked. Standard Oil created a board of 9 trustees. Then, all the supposedly independent oil companies across America would transfer their stock to these trustees. On paper, these companies looked separate. They had different names, different offices. They appeared to compete with each other. But in reality, they all answered to the same 9 men, the same board, the same strategy, the same ultimate boss, John D. Rockefeller. This was the birth of the modern corporate structure: the holding company, the parent corporation, the board of directors, the shareholders, all of it designed to concentrate power while maintaining the illusion of competition. And here's what makes this so brilliant and so terrifying. It worked so well that it became the template for everything. Within a decade, trusts appeared in sugar, tobacco, steel, and railroads. J.P. Morgan saw what Rockefeller did and applied it to banking. Andrew Carnegie did the same with steel. The entire American economy in just 20 years transformed from thousands of small businesses into a handful of trusts controlling everything. And the man who created the template? John D. Rockefeller, the philosophy behind the empire. But here's what you need to understand. Rockefeller didn't see himself as a villain. In fact, he thought he was doing God's work. He had this phrase he repeated constantly: "The good Lord gave me my money." He genuinely, truly believed that his wealth was proof of divine blessing, that God had chosen him to bring order to chaos, efficiency to waste. Every Sunday, without fail, he taught Bible class. He gave away over $550 million during his lifetime, an absolutely staggering amount. He funded universities, medical research, and charitable organizations. The Rockefeller Foundation still exists today and has saved millions of lives. But the same man would destroy entire towns whose economies depended on independent refineries. He would ruin families. He would use his wealth to influence politicians and rewrite laws in his favor. And when journalist Ida Tarbell exposed his ruthless business practices in 1904, Rockefeller was genuinely confused by the public outrage. In his mind, he wasn't crushing competition. He was eliminating waste. He wasn't creating a monopoly. He was bringing cooperation. He truly believed that one massive corporation controlling an entire industry was better for everyone than hundreds of small businesses competing. And here's the quote that should chill you to your core. In his private papers, Rockefeller wrote, "The day of combination is here to stay. Individualism has gone, never to return." He wasn't predicting the future. He was declaring it. He was building a world where small businesses couldn't exist, where individual entrepreneurs were obsolete, where everything flowed through massive corporate monopolies. The illusion of defeat. So what happened next? Well, the government finally stepped in. After years of public pressure, investigative journalism, and growing outrage, the Supreme Court ruled in 1911 that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly. Standard Oil was ordered to break up into 34 separate companies. This should have been the end of the Rockefeller empire, right? This should have been justice, except it wasn't. Those 34 companies? They included little names you might recognize: Exxon, Mobil, Chevron, Amoco, and parts of what would become BP America. And because Rockefeller owned shares in all of them, and because these companies continued to dominate their markets, something insane happened. Breaking up Standard Oil made Rockefeller richer. His wealth actually increased after the monopoly was dissolved. The system had become too big to kill. Breaking it into pieces just created 34 smaller monopolies that would eventually merge back together in different configurations. And the corporate structure he pioneered, the trust model, the board of directors, the shareholder system, the focus on quarterly earnings and efficiency above everything else, none of that went away. It became standard practice. It became the only way to do business. Now let me show you how this system controls your life right now, today, this very moment. Look at your smartphone. Whether it's an iPhone or a Samsung, you're trapped in an ecosystem designed exactly like Standard Oil. Apple controls the hardware, the operating system, the App Store, the cloud services, the payment system, vertical integration, just like Rockefeller. And if you try to leave, you lose your messages, your photos, your purchased apps, your connected devices. The switching cost is so high that most people never do it. That's not an accident. That's the system working exactly as designed. Look at Amazon. They're not just a retailer. They own the warehouses, the delivery network, the cloud infrastructure that runs half the internet, the payment systems, the streaming service. They use data from third-party sellers on their platform to create competing products. When they can't beat a competitor, they buy them or copy them. It's the Standard Oil playbook, word for word, line for line. The only difference is oil became data. Look at your job. Whether you work in tech, retail, healthcare, or media, you're almost certainly working for one of a handful of companies that dominate your industry. That small independent business your grandparents might have owned? Statistically extinct. In 1980, independent retailers made up 53% of the market. Today, less than 25% and falling every single year. Rockefeller's prediction came true. Individualism is gone. And here's the part that should truly terrify you. Look at your retirement account, your investments, your 401k. Where is that money? It's probably managed by BlackRock, Vanguard, or State Street. These three firms collectively own 20% of every major publicly traded company in America. They're the largest shareholders in Coca-Cola and Pepsi, in Ford and General Motors, in Home Depot and Lowe's. The competition, you see? It's theater. At the ownership level, at the level where decisions are actually made, it's the same handful of entities controlling everything. This is Rockefeller's ultimate victory. We have the illusion of choice, the appearance of competition, the feeling of a free market, but real power is concentrated in fewer hands than ever before. The trust never died. It just evolved. So why can't you escape the system John D. Rockefeller built? Because it's not about oil anymore. It's not even about business. Rockefeller's philosophy, his worldview, his fundamental approach to organizing human activity has become the operating system of modern civilization. We measure success by growth and scale. We prioritize efficiency over resilience. We see consolidation as inevitable, even desirable. We accept that a few giant corporations should control most of what we buy, watch, read, and consume. We've internalized Rockefeller's logic. Bigger is better, monopoly is efficiency, resistance is futile. The man died in 1937 at age 97, wealthy beyond imagination, having lived long enough to see his system become permanent. In his final years, he spent his time giving away dimes to children and funding medical research. Rockefeller University, the University of Chicago, the Rockefeller Foundation. His name is on buildings dedicated to learning, healing, and progress. But his real legacy isn't on any building. It's in how we think. It's in how our economy functions. It's in the fact that every single person watching this video is living inside a machine that one man designed over 150 years ago. You can't escape Rockefeller's system because you were born into it. You work within it, you consume through it, you retire within it, and even your attempts to resist it are probably funded by companies that are part of it. The question isn't whether you can escape. You can't. The question is, now that you see the machine, now that you understand how it was built and who built it, what will you do with that knowledge? Because Rockefeller was right about one thing. The day of combination is here to stay. Individualism, at least in the way we used to understand it, is gone. The only question left is, are you going to be crushed by the machine, or are you going to learn how it works and find your place within it? If this video changed how you see the world, share it with someone who needs to understand the system. Because the first step to freedom isn't escaping the machine, it's understanding that you're inside one.